indeed. You are more than you are. There's a great story that comes out of China. I believe it was China. It's been told here in the U.S. many times. And that is that in the 1960s, there was an area where a highway was being widened from a small street into a major thoroughfare. And in order to do that, they had to take up right-of-ways. And one of the problems is the right-of-way for that highway was going right through one half of a monastery, a Buddhist monastery. So they realized that what they had to do in order to do that was to move a lot of what was in the monastery over into another part of the grounds. One of those things to be moved was a very large clay Buddha, and so that they tore the building off of that was around it. They brought in a big crane and strapped it under the clay Buddha and got it all set up, and lifted the Buddha out of that space over to another area, put it on a platform where they would plan to build a building around it. However, the monsoons were right upon them, and that night they began to come in. And so the monks very carefully wrapped this entire very large Buddha. And as they did, they wrapped it, they covered it, and concerned that the rain would wash the clay, would affect the clay. During the night, one of the monks came out to take a look and to be sure the Buddha was okay. And as he pulled back part of the covering and shined his flashlight in to see what's happening, light flashed back at him. So he opened things up a little further, and he crawled kind of in there and kind of poked at that area where he saw light flash, and realized there was something underneath the clay. And so as he began to push away and dig it apart and take more space, it turned out that the clay had covered a golden Buddha, solid gold, built in the centuries and centuries before, when they were hiding the Buddhas in order to keep them from being carried away by marauding groups of other people. And that's who we are. That's how we are. We're like the golden Buddha, where there is that within us that is so beautiful and so valuable and so heavy and so real and so rich. And yet so often it's covered over with clay. It's covered over with other thoughts and ideas. This is a very interesting time of convergence of religions and spiritual paths. Right now this is Palm Sunday, and then we have all of this great Holy Week that Christians are celebrating and are following through to Easter, and this Holy Week is a time of looking deep within and seeing where's the gold and what is the clay I need to let go of. It's also true that Passover starts on Saturday, and Passover is another time where we release, we let go, we change and look more deeply. It's a celebration of the freedom that came to the Jewish people when the angel of death passed over and did not enter their homes. It's also Ramadan starting next week. A Ramadan, which is a time for fasting. It's a time for looking within. It's a time for getting back to that seriousness within us, that place within us where our real power lies, where our real truth lies. And that's what this whole week's about. Imagine, this is a week where a major majority of folks in the world are practicing very specific, very focused spiritual practice. So it's already an atmosphere in which you and I can capitalize on and ride that energy, ride that excitement, ride that moment and that myth and that mystery, in order to bring a greater awareness to ourselves, a greater freedom to ourselves, a greater godness, liveness to ourselves. And it's a great time for dancing with your donkey. We dance with our donkey, right? I loved Doug's explanation of that. The donkey is that metaphysical representation of all those things within us that get in the way, that get in trouble. Maybe a representation of that clay that covers us. and that hides our great value and our great truth and our great goodness from everybody. The donkey is the place where we get to move through life addressing and dealing with all of that. It is the stubborn part of you and me. I don't know about you, but my donkey's been raising its head all week. I have been arguing with myself about a number of things that have gotten in the way of my creativity, that have gotten in the way of my living more focused and peacefully. You know, to carry the metaphor into the Palm Sunday, today is the day where it was celebrated that Jesus went into the city riding on a donkey, and it was praised and hallelujah, and we all know those songs and all those things that go with that. Hosanna, hey, Zanna, 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 hey. And yet it was still a donkey he was riding. And it was, the city of Jerusalem metaphysically means is talking about the city of peace, the place of peace within us, the place of contentment, the place of serenity within us. So riding the donkey is riding your flaws, your perfections, your imperfections, your challenges, all of those things toward your place of peace and into your place of peace. We call it dancing with the donkey because what we're doing is not trying to pretend those things aren't there. You don't go out and shoot the donkey and then hope that you'll have a ride to your place of peace. No, you got to ride that donkey. You got to get true with yourself and work with all of those ideas and consciousness that might make it more difficult to get where you're going. We've all seen, I've certainly seen many of them, the old Westerns that always had a burro in it that was giving trouble to somebody, some cantankerous old miner or someone along the way in their process. And yet, as Doug said, that burro is very, very attached to its owner. People who raise burros, and there's some wonderful stuff on the internet about that, they find them to be wonderful pets, wonderful animals, and very connected and committed to those that they carry, those that they are attached to. So it is that those things in me that are less than what I'd like them to be are also somewhat well connected to me. They don't go away easily. If you decide you're going to do better, you're going to start an exercise program. One of my vows that I do at least once a month. And every time it's not a matter of just suddenly I'm transformed. I can have all the energy and excitement and I'm ready to go to the gym and I'm ready to do this and that. Doesn't work. I have to coach myself in that direction. And especially nowadays, if you're going to the gym, you got to get the right clothes and the right shoes, and you got to get the right water bottle so you have plenty of water to drink while you're there. And then you, of course, need a towel, and then you need flip-flops for the shower, and on it goes. So we gather those things around us, and all that is part of the process of getting there. And the same thing is true with those parts of us that are resistant to change, that are resistant to our creativity. We have to work with them. We have to dance with them. We have to recognize them for the good and the true that they are, because they're there for a reason. Our resistances have been well developed for a reason. They served us positively and very well at some time in our life. But the time has come now where those changes may be ready to be fully enveloped, and that donkey may dance with you instead of simply stubbornly digging in its hooves and refusing to move or to go where you want it to go. See, we have to embrace those and heal them. Many of us have major kinds of events that happened in our lives before this moment. Events that at the time may have seemed to be and may have been truly horrible, truly difficult, and yet became the launching stone, the launching pad for our greatest truth, our greatest goodness, our greatest change. I've told this story many times at the death of my father, right after becoming involved in spirituality and being saved, where he was so transformed, it was obvious and clear to me as a 7-year-old. And then he died. And people talked about God. And I got real curious as a 7-year-old. What's this God stuff? And my whole life has been shaped by that event. And my guide and my direction and my purpose of living in an awareness and in a relationship to this thing called life, this thing called God, this thing called all that there is, spirit, whatever names you want to put on it. Pursuing it both intellectually and emotionally and through various spiritual paths. I would not wish that horrible event on anyone. And yet, it has turned into the very beauty and power and goodness of my life. So before we get ready to just do away with and try to pretend these things aren't happening in us, let's look for the dance with it. Let's look to dance with it, to understand it, to find the joy of getting over something, of moving on, of moving forward, of releasing. You know, the truth is that donkey rides right on through and takes you where you want to go eventually. It may not be on the route that you first thought, but you get there. And so we find ourselves celebrating and moving in that direction. These profound and amazing life changes are so important. And our being willing to embrace all of life, the difficult things as well as the wonderful, easy, smooth riding things. Those are so important. And the important thing that pulls it all together is that no matter what you've done and who you've been up until now, excuse me, that truth of you shows up. You know, there's another art form that's been around that comes from Japan, in which they take anytime a valuable pottery piece, or not anytime, but certain chosen ones, crack or are broken, and the cracks show up. When they're putting them back together, they do so with gold or silver. And the gold and the silver pulls the pot back together, holds it together, and shines through with great beauty. They're beautiful pieces of art. And again, not unlike our lives, where we may feel like a broken pot, and sometimes the donkey has kicked that pot into who knows where. And yet when we pull it back together, when we come together in shape and form, the seams that hold it all together are golden. And the beauty that is within us shows with ease and with grace. And that gold, that beauty, that power that is right there is something called love. It is the love of life. It is the love of one another. It is the love of the universe. So I want to close with a letter from Albert Einstein to his daughter. It was written in the 50s probably, and which she by his instruction did not share with the rest of the world until he had said at least 2 decades after he was no longer with us. So here it is. Dear daughter, when I proposed the theory of relativity, very few understood me. And what I will reveal now to transmit to mankind, humankind, will also collide with the understanding and prejudice of the world. There's an extremely powerful force that so far science has not found a formal explanation to. It is a force that includes and governs all others, and is even behind any phenomenon operating in the universe, and has not yet been identified by us. This universal force is love. When scientists looked for a unified theory of the universe, they forgot the most powerful unseen force there is. Love is light that enlightens those who give and receive it. Love is gravity because it makes some people feel attracted to other people. Love is power because it manipulates, it multiplies. Man, go on, Bob. You can't read. You can read. Love is power because it multiplies the best we have. Fake love may manipulate and allows humanity not to be extinguished by their blind selfishness. Love unfolds and reveals. For love, we live and die. Love is God, and God is love. This force explains everything and gives us meaning to life. This is the valuable variable that we have ignored for too long. Maybe because we are afraid of love, because it's the only energy in the universe that man has not learned to drive by will. To give visibility to love, I made a simple substitution in my most famous equation. If instead of E equals mc squared, we accept that the energy to heal the world can be obtained through love multiplied by the speed of light squared, we arrive at the conclusion that love is the most powerful force there is because it has no limits. If we want our species to survive, if we are to find meaning in life, if we want to save the world and every sentient being in the habitat, love is the one and only answer. Perhaps we are not yet ready to make a bomb of love, a device powerful enough to entirely destroy the hate, selfishness, and greed that devastates the planet. However, each individual carries within them a small and powerful generator of love whose energy is waiting to be released. Albert Einstein. You are that generator of love. You are that power that reveals the gold within you, that puts the gold in the cracks around the cracks in the pot and shows what great value and truth we are. And you're the gold and the love that can dance with your donkey and get fully engaged in the city of Jerusalem. And so it is. Thank you.